Hi, my name is Nick Campbell, and I'm hanging out at Guitar Center checking out the new Fender American Performer Precision Bass. It definitely has the sort of like classic Fender feel, and I've always played Fender instruments ever since I started playing bass, and I mostly play vintage Fender, so whenever I'm looking for a new instrument, I always try to find something that sort of has that aesthetic. Whenever I see a bass like this that's like simple, doesn't have any more knobs than you need, it's exactly the kind of thing that I would play on like a gig. And I think that this neck does a good job of sort of like kind of treading the balance a little bit, where it still feels like a P bass. It has the sort of like thickness and girth that you expect when you play, like quarter notes on a P bass that has that thump. But it's thin enough where you can freely access all parts of the neck easily in a way that you would more commonly associate with a jazz bass. So I think it strikes that balance really well. So I think that Fender did a good job with this model, kind of like taking the best of both worlds from the P neck and the jazz neck. I'm gonna try out just the P bass pickup by itself without the jazz bass for a second. I really like this P bass pickup. I think as someone who plays a lot of vintage basses primarily, it's always hard to find new instruments that have this sort of like classic thump and sort of like mid-range attack of a sort of vintage P that still have the same sort of warmth. And even though these strings are brand new, it's really deep sounding and there's a lot of nice low end, and if you dig into it, you still get sort of like the mid poke, and it's not super harsh and bright, even though the tone's all the way up and these are new strings. It definitely reminds me of playing like my 60s P bass at home. You have the classic P thing, which will work for basically everything. But if you want that sort of added definition from having a jazz bass pickup in the bridge, you sort of have that flexibility as well. And to me, the sort of classic jazz bass sound is from the bridge pickup anyway, not the neck. And having something with more complex sound and rich tone coming in the neck position pickup is way more useful than having like a jazz bass pickup a lot of the time, especially if you want to cover a lot of ground on certain kinds of gigs. So I'm going to try out the jazz bass pickup by itself right now. Yeah, man. I mean, I think this does a really good job of doing sort of the Jocko thing. And the neck is still, it's thin enough that you can kind of get around and do some of those licks. The sound, too, isn't too harsh or bright, which is good, because that can sometimes be a problem with like newer jazz bass pickups in the bridge area. But you get sort of all of that like clarity and growl that you'd want from a jazz bass. And it's great to be able to kind of access that all on one bass, especially if you're on a gig where you have to play a bunch of different kinds of music. I would definitely recommend this for like, this could be like an entry-level student model bass, but you could also use it in a lot of professional circumstances. I mean, this would be like a great sort of like touring bass where you wouldn't want to take something that's vintage, or if you're looking to step up from something, it's like maybe a second or third instrument. This would be like in the ballpark of having something that you could buy and then keep for a long time and continue to use throughout your professional career, I think. These are really stable and well-built and good-sounding instruments. So that's the Fender American Performer Precision Bass. Check it out at your local Guitar Center or at guitarcenter.com.